For nearly 5 decades, UNDP has stood alongside the people of Liberia. UNDP supported Liberians through the war, the post-war recovery, and is still here today, helping the country on its journey toward lasting peace and sustainable development. In 2025, UNDP marks 60 years as a global leader in development, resilience, and empowerment. To honor this milestone, we journey down memory lane with UNDP Liberia alumni, reflecting on the legacy and impact of partnership in building a stronger nation.
Well, my name is Anthony Selma. I joined UNDP Liberia in September 2005 as National Information Officer. I worked in that capacity for 3 years, and that was later transformed to communication analyst.
So my name is Wilmot A. Reeves, and I had the privilege of working for the United Nations Development Program in Liberia, which basically started in September the 1st, 2005, when I joined UNDP Liberia. And I joined as an economic specialist, which functionally is referred to as the national economist.
My name is Monique Cooper Liverpool, and I worked here at UNDP Liberia from, I think, May of 2006 to about April of 2011.
My name is James Jr. I worked with UNDP Liberia office for about 5 years, beginning 2008 to 2013.
Hello, I'm John Walker. I joined UNDP 1st of March 2009. I came in as Assistant Resident Representative for Program, specifically Pro-Port Development and Economic Development.
And I joined UNDP at a time that was very crucial. At the time, the disarmament and the demobilization had just ended. And the UNDP was supporting the resettlement, the reintegration of internally displaced people into communities because they wanted to get rid of displaced camps, refugee camps. They wanted everybody to go back. But there was nothing to go back to. So UNDP had a project called Community-Based Recovery Project.
Somebody asked me what are some achievements. UNDP, it was during our administration that UNDP ended up being on a clean list. Entire world. UNDP first, I don't know if it happened afterward, but first UNDP came on a clean list during our administration at UNDP. And we had a lot of unique projects. I would like to start specifically with the National Youth Volunteer Services Program because it was very successful. And this is what we did. We took young graduates who did not have experience. Because you see, at the time during the war, it was you had to have a certain level of experience before you work with these international NGOs. At the same time, most of the students that graduated as nurses, teachers, agriculturists, they did not have experience. So how to bridge the gap? UNDP took on to bridge the gap. We recruited young graduates, and the UNDP paid them to go on the field as teachers, agriculturists, medical personnel, all these things. At the end of the day, what happened? The students ended up, and it was really one of our aims was that our recruits were not to work within Montserrado County, not even Markibi. We tried to get as far as possible out of Monrovia because we wanted to serve the leeward counties. That was the first. The second condition was that nobody was allowed to work in his county of origin. That was if you came from Bong County, you were not supposed to work in Bong or Lofa or Nimba, no. We sometimes sent you to Maryland. And the idea was social cohesion.
It was almost like we were building from scratch. And this was based on the fact that the issue of capacity and erosion had taken place. The public service was very much challenged, and I remember when UNDP Liberia was called upon to support the government in the area of capacity development, and some of the major achievements that we undertook at the time had to basically do with designing projects that would support government and at the level of policy as well as technical level.
So that was such an exciting era of UNDP Liberia. We had just elected Africa's first female president, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and she was also coming out of UNDP HQ and the Africa Bureau. So she had a lot of expectations for the support from the UNDP country office for her government. And we had a dynamic and excited team that was really doing the hard work of rebuilding Liberia at the time. I worked in the strategic policy unit at the time, which was headed by a senior economist. We had a national economist, and we were a bit of an unconventional unit also. We were not your typical economist unit just writing out reports. We also found ourselves implementing some strategic capacity building programs that our fresh post-conflict country was really in dire need of.
I introduced the Communication for Development Project, the C4D. The Communication for Development Project, I started to work with local journalists in Liberia, conducting workshops, providing capacity building for them, because we were trying to transition from journalism being all about crisis to journalism being about development, because UNDP was a development or is a development institution. So we try to reorientate the minds of journalists that, look, you can report what you want to report, but focus on the developmental aspect that affects a lot of people. So we try to move them through that communication, the C4D project, from crisis reporting to development reporting. After we introduced the Communication for Development project, the C4D, we saw a marked shift in the journalism practice in the country. We saw journalists coming together to form Environmental Journalists Association, institutional reporting, specialized reporting on developmental issues. So that was a shift that journalists were able to come together to focus on particular subject areas to report on. So I think that was a great improvement.
So a lot of the projects that we undertook were to restore law and order, to restore the image of the police, to restructure the courts, rehabilitate courts buildings, justice institution buildings, and provide technical assistance to justice actors, beginning from the Ministry of Justice to the different courts, different depots around the country, provide trainings for lawyers. Importantly, there are a couple of things that stand out that I know we achieved. One of them was actually providing support to the Supreme Court of Liberia, the judiciary, in terms of structuring and building new magisterial courts around the country. That was done. We were able to build 3 or 4 magisterial courts, therefore extending the control and the opportunity for people to access justice in the first instance.
Some of the key achievements I recall from my time at UNDP were really the foundations that we laid for establishing Liberia's post-war development framework. We started out really heavily supporting the Ministry of Planning and Economic Affairs at the time with crafting the first post-war development agenda. At the time, that was called a poverty reduction strategy. But even before that poverty reduction strategy, our strategic policy unit and team of economists and social experts were leading other supporting studies even. These were the first of their kind happening immediately after the transition of government. And those were informing, they were collecting the data to inform really how we would build out the framework for rebuilding Liberia. So it was really us at the front lines of doing the core work of what UNDP is known for as an agency, and we were doing that right here through UNDP Liberia, supporting post-war Liberia.
UNDP Liberia stood up very strongly, given the fact that it was in the forefront designing these different interventions.
We were not even in this nice big shared building. We were in a different part of the city in Mama Point, and we had individual buildings. So it's nice to also see the transition that we have one UN house and agencies can collaborate a lot easier with closer proximity.